Good morning, everybody. Fox News alert right now. Severe storms hammering the south, leaving at least 5 people dead. Heavy winds, rain, and possible tornadoes killing 4 in Alabama, 1 in northern Florida. There are tens of thousands without power this morning. And that threat is not over as the storm continues on the march. More on this in moments inside of America's Newsroom. First, though, President-elect Donald Trump beginning the new year, taking on GM moments ago and promising big news on the alleged Russian hacks. It's a big morning of news. Hope you had a great holiday. Feels like a new year, doesn't it, McCallum?
It sure does.
Because it is. I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning. Welcome to America's Newsroom. Nice to see you.
Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year, everybody at home. It's great to have the team back together, and we thank everybody who filled in for us over the last week or so. I'm Martha McCallum. So here's what's ahead. The president-elect set to receive an intelligence briefing on the hacks over the next 24 hours or so. He is back to business in New York City, continuing to question what our intel agencies are saying about the Russian cyber attacks. Mr. Trump even claiming that he has information that no one else does.
I know a lot about hacking, and hacking is a very hard thing to prove, so it could be somebody else. And I also know things that other people don't know, and so they cannot be sure of the situation.
Peter Doocy followed this all throughout the holidays, and he is in front of Trump Tower this morning. So, Peter, good morning to you. The president-elect reportedly receiving an intelligence briefing specific to this sometime today. What do we think he's going to get out of this?
We know what he needs to get out of it to have his mind changed on this, Martha. We just heard this morning that these high-ranking members of the intel community coming to New York to brief the president-elect are going to have clear-cut proof that the Russians interfered with the U.S. election process if they are going to convince Mr. Trump.
He'll have to see all the evidence. He'll have to see what's in the briefing. And remember, you're not saying it now, but many people on TV try to conflate any Russian hacking that may have occurred with the election results. And that has been conflated, unfortunately, where people are still trying to find a reason why Hillary Clinton lost. You can't deny it.
And adding, kind of muddying the water a little bit more, I should say, in an interview with Sean Hannity, Julian Assange says that Russia are not the ones who gave WikiLeaks DNC emails or John Podesta emails, which obviously conflicts with what the Obama administration said over the holiday. Martha? Yeah,
we're going to dig into that some more this morning, Peter. Another bit of information that's pretty significant this morning on Twitter is that the president-elect is now going after General Motors, right?
Right, he's applying pressure using a campaign promise to an American car company, the same way that he applied pressure using Twitter to Carrier and to Boeing and to Lockheed Martin to get some results. The tweet about GM, though, says this: General Motors is sending Mexican-made model of Chevy Cruze to U.S. car dealers tax-free across border. Make in USA or pay big border tax. And this morning, another key player was added to the Trump trade team. It's Robert Lighthizer. He's going to be nominated a U.S. trade representative. Lighthizer was once the deputy trade rep under Reagan, and part of the transition team's announcement about his selection says that he's going to try to strengthen manufacturing here and try to stop jobs from leaving. Martha?
All right, lots more to come on that. We'll be talking about that at the top of the 10. Thank you, Peter.
Now to this exclusive interview with Sean Hannity from WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, conducted yesterday in London. Remember now, the thousands of hacked emails were made public in daily dumps courtesy of WikiLeaks. As Peter just reported, Assange saying that his source was not the government in Moscow.
We can say, we have said repeatedly over the last 2 months that our source is not the Russian government and it is not a state party. Did it change the outcome? Who knows? It's absolutely impossible to tell. But if it did, the accusation is that the true statements of Hillary Clinton and her campaign manager, John Podesta, and the DNC head, Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, their true statements is what changed the election.
There is a lot in this interview. John Bolton, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Senior Fellow American Enterprise Institute, and a Fox News contributor. Sir, good morning to you and Happy New Year. Okay, he just said there, not the Russian government, not a state party. What does that mean to you?
Well, kudos to Sean Hannity for getting the interview, but let's be clear, I wouldn't trust Julian Assange to give a straight answer to that question if his life depended upon it. And if you listen carefully to what he said, he didn't deny that it could have come from Russian capabilities. It didn't come in a package that said "from Russia with love," but that answer doesn't exclude the possibility that it did come as a result of Russian government action. As I say, he wouldn't tell you the real answer in any case.
Well, how easy or difficult would it be to show the American public evidence on behalf of the administration?
Well, the intelligence community undoubtedly has evidence that they could show. The problem with showing all of it, which might be one way to get to the bottom of this, is it would blow a lot of sources and methods by which we gather other intelligence that we need to keep in place. I think the people who have looked at this in the Senate have concluded that there was Russian involvement. But the fact is that the waters have been so muddied in the public debate in this country. I think President-elect Trump or the House and Senate Intelligence Committees are going to have to think very carefully about how much they can put out to try and clear up the misconceptions we've had.
Well, a lot of people are looking for that evidence too, and to convince them one way or the other. Quickly on that one, and move to some of these tweets.
Yeah, look, I've thought the possibility of a false flag existed for some time here. Whether they can show that or not, I don't know. But I would say the notion that you have to wait for absolute proof about something before you act is a bad formula to use in international relations. You never have absolute proof. And if you're simply waiting for more information, more intelligence, you're letting events dictate your policy rather than you dictating it.
All right, sir, one moment here. Mike Pence now was outside Trump Tower. He's talking about Congress and some of what we're discussing, too.
Intelligence briefing, but I think over the course of the coming days, the President-elect will be receiving more information about that and other topics on the world stage.
And have you lost confidence in the U.S. intelligence community?
I think the challenges that America faces on the world stage are going to be met with renewed American strength and renewed American leadership. Rebuilding our military, engaging leaders around the world as the President-elect has done on a personal basis is all part and parcel of I think, a new season. It's 2017. We're just a few weeks away from a new administration taking office, and I think the world will see that with our President-elect taking office, that America will be standing tall in the world again, engaging the world again, and standing firmly for America's interests. Thank you all.
First comment of the day, did not expect that, but there it is, Mike Pence outside Trump Tower, 17 days to the inauguration. We heard, Mr. Ambassador, from just yesterday, in fact, a couple of tweets that went out about China and North Korea. This is what the President-elect said. China has been taking out massive amounts of money and wealth from the U.S. in totally one-sided trade, but won't help with North Korea. Nice. Here's another one. North Korea just stated that it's in the final stages of developing a nuclear weapon capable of reaching parts of the U.S. It won't happen. Mike Pence just referred to the challenges here and overseas, and there are many. How do you interpret that response from the incoming administration?
Well, I think it's the basis for a much more realistic policy of dealing with China. I think if you talk to any American business that operates in China, you know that they're at risk of their intellectual property being stolen by Chinese companies in the state. You know that they don't get equal justice in Chinese courts. You know that they're discriminated against in lots of regulatory decisions. China's not living up to the obligations that it undertook in international trade agreements. So doing something about that, I think, is long overdue. And as far as North Korea is concerned, China has not been helpful on North Korea these past 15 years. Even in Bush and Obama administrations, people said, well, they helped the six-party talks. Those six-party talks produced nothing except buying time for North Korea to continue with its nuclear and its ballistic missile programs, which Trump referred to in the second tweet. I think the North Korean threat is very grave, and not just from their missiles, but from their potential cooperation with Iran and others.
Thank you for your time, sir. John Bolton, some breaking news this morning. Thank you, sir.
So we've got a big show ahead for you today. Sean Hannity will make a rare morning appearance. He will join us live to talk about his big interview with Julian Assange, which airs later tonight. But first, Sean Spicer on the docket at 9:15 a.m. Eastern. The incoming White House press secretary will join us in just a few minutes. And at the bottom of the hour, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who gets business underway in a big way today as they swear in the 115th Congress in just a little while this morning. So speaking of that, things kick off on Capitol Hill just a few hours hours from now. Lawmakers will gavel in for the first time in 2017. Those just elected in the sweeping results that happened in November are about to take their new positions. There will be votes for House Speaker, and then the work will get underway. They are planning a very aggressive first 100 days agenda on everything from trade to tax reform. We're going to get some information on that from Kevin McCarthy. Repealing Obamacare as well is on the docket. Some Democrats, of course, have the plans of their own. Some roadblocks that they want to throw in the way. They want to slow down some confirmations of several of President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet positions. So we're going to get much more for you as we speak with the majority leader coming up in just a little while at the bottom of the hour.
No shortage of topics, is there now? Oh. Wow, 10 minutes past right now. Top Democrats now. Hillary Clinton promising a smooth transition of power. Remember this?
We must accept this result and then look to the future. Donald Trump is going to be our president. We owe him an open mind and the chance to lead.
But the transition is proving to be anything but smooth sailing so far. In many ways, Martha, it is Obama versus Trump. We'll analyze that. The political waters may get even rougher going forward.
So true. Lots of tea leaves dropped over the Christmas holidays. And a Fox News alert, new details about the suspect in the Istanbul terror attack. Look at this chilling video. As he took on a popular tourist destination, he was caught filming himself just prior. More on that breaking news when we come back.
Democratic senators can make confirmation hearings tougher. A number of President-elect Trump's cabinet picks hoping to stretch confirmation votes possibly into the month of March. Incoming Democratic Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer saying, quote, if Republicans think they can quickly jam through a whole slate of nominees without a fair hearing process, they're sorely mistaken, end quote. Sean Spicer, incoming White House Press Secretary, Communications Director for the RNC, with me now. Sir, good day to you. And in the brand new year, a happy new year to you. Do you expect Democrats to slow roll this thing?
I think they're going to try to do what they can, but I would like to introduce the 2017 Democrats to the 2008 Democrats. When Barack Obama was elected president, the Republican Senate at the time confirmed 7 of his cabinet picks on day 1 and 5 additionally in the week following that. They were very clear at the time how important it was that we allow these people to be confirmed to get to work immediately. So I would ask them to abide by the same advice that they gave us in 2008 when Barack Obama was elected, and allow these highly qualified people to take office so that we can start bringing change to this country.
Schumer says if he gets more financial data, or nothing will happen until he gets more financial data from several of these nominees. Will he get it, Sean?
Well, again, I would refer Senator Schumer to Senator Schumer of 2008. We are abiding by the same standard that Senator Schumer had for the Obama nominees, including Senator Clinton and others. He seems to want to change the rules because his party didn't win. But I think we will continue to abide by the rules that Senator Schumer and Reid had no problem with in 2008 when then President Obama was elected.
Julian Assange did an interview with Sean Hannity. I want to move to that right now, okay? He is suggesting in a lot of ways, Sean, that, well, I'll let you listen to him and then I'll ask you specifically about what he said on the election.
Why such a dramatic response? Well, the reason is obvious. They're trying to delegitimize Trump administration as it goes into the White House. They are trying to say that President-elect Trump is not a legitimate president.
A lot of that interview will air later tonight. Sean Hannity joins us next hour. But as for this hour, Mr. Trump said over the weekend that he has his own sources on this intel. Will we see what he is suggesting that could prove evidence, yes or no, on this, Sean?
Well, the president-elect gets briefed by the members of the intelligence community on a daily basis to ensure he's up to speed. So he can't necessarily reveal everything that he is privy to because it is classified, but he is given that access to that information and those sources and methods of what's happening. I think this report, remember it
could settle his argument to go public, Sean.
I understand that, but you can't reveal classified information. He can come to a conclusion, though, based on the evidence and the facts and the data and intelligence that is shared with him. The report, keep in mind, isn't even final yet. He will be briefed later this week by the senior members of the intelligence community once the report is final. But the bigger question I have, and I've stated this before, is when you look at the magnitude of the response and the sanctions that we instituted as a government, the question has to be asked, are those sanctions in proportion to the acts that have been committed? Because these are the greatest amount of sanctions that have been instituted in modern history. We've never kicked 35 people out and closed 2 sites of a country in peacetime. So the question is, are they proportional? And number 2 is are they political or are they diplomatic? Because they never responded to China when millions of people had their sensitive information hacked. And if you also go back and talk about the fact that in September, the president said that he told Putin to knock it off. So if they knew the actions were occurring back then, why did they not wait? Was it because Hillary Clinton didn't win the election? I don't know the answer, but it seems like that there should be some additional questions asked whether the response is political or diplomatic.
Can you say now, Sean, how your information is different from the intelligence community, yes or no?
No, it's not a question of different, Bill. I think what the intelligence community does is provide principals with the raw data to make conclusions and draw inferences as to what they believe. Their job is not to come in and give you the conclusion, it's to give you the data and allow the decision makers to decide how to act based on the data sets and the intelligence that they're given. That's what President-elect Trump will be given later this week, and he will come to the conclusions based on the intelligence that is presented to him of the circumstances that have occurred. But the fact is that this administration tried to have a reset with Russia at the beginning, and it failed. I understand that didn't work out too well, but this administration understands the importance of Russia and putting America's interests first in the geopolitical climate that we live in. We will do that, and this president, I think, is going to understands that it's in America's interest to have a very fruitful relationship with Russia.
2 more quick things. Supreme Court nominee, when will we get a name?
When the president-elect's ready to give one.
All right.
He's focused on his cabinet right now. He's been talking to folks about this. But after the cabinet is filled, I think then you'll see some further action on the Supreme Court.
We saw Mike Pence moments ago. When is the first press conference from the president-elect going to be held?
I would expect in the next 10 to 15 days.
So before the inauguration?
Absolutely.
Okay. Sean Spicer, thank you for your time. Many more questions to come.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks for your time today.
Martha.
So deadly storms sweeping through the South. 5 people have lost their lives and a lot of destruction has been left behind. We're going to take you there for a live report on the ground. And a desperate search in Colorado for a 6-year-old boy who has been missing, out and alone since New Year's Eve. Police say that they do not think he was abducted, while they still say this is a race against time.
Please bring my baby home. Please help me find him.
Have another break in the story from Istanbul, the terror attack there. New video has been released. Turkish officials saying the suspect, screen left, recorded himself walking around a popular tourist spot. There's no word if it was taken before or after the attack. Some suggest it was taken a few days prior. 39 people gunned down, dozens injured when this gunman opened fire in a popular nightclub on New Year's Eve. Police have arrested at least 14 in connection to the attack and say they're closer to identifying the shooter, who is still on the run. Today, at the moment, not accounted for. ISIS yesterday claiming responsibility.
And now to this weather alert for you. A powerful storm system is barreling through the southern states. It went through last night and left 5 people dead and sparked several tornadoes.
Peeled it off like a tin can. I mean, it ripped it off. I mean, I'm speechless. It's terrible.
We were kind of watching, and then all of a sudden it was just on top of us, just that fast. The whole building shook, and we saw the piece of roof hit my mother's car.
Unbelievable. The storms did major damage, as you can see, to the Alabama Gulf Coast Zoo as well in Gulf Shores. WALA's Stephen Alexander live at the zoo with the latest there. So, Steve, tell us a little bit about the heaviest damage that you're seeing out there on the ground.
Good morning. This is a very traumatic night for the residents, the animals here at the Alabama Gulf Coast Zoo in Gulf Shores, a little southeast of Mobile. Simba and Cece live in there and found a tree on top of their very strong, fortunately, cage that they live in. The good news is no animals were hurt. Nobody was hurt here at the zoo. A couple of the birds did end up in the water, some of the exotic birds, but you see it could have been much worse here. Waiting to see if Simba or Cece want to come out and stick their noses out. But again, because everything is protected and there's a lot of barriers here, again, no one was hurt. but they were concerned a little while for the birds, mostly trees down, certainly things like that, and they have to get everything repaired. In the city of Gulf Shores, one person slightly hurt, again, some trees down. Could have been a lot worse, not sure if it's a tornado or straight line winds that came in here just southeast of Mobile last night. But there's Simba. Simba, I understand, I've been told by some of the zookeepers, a little bit nervous this morning. Quite understandably, he had a tree on top of his house. So the cleanup will continue here in Gulf Shores, but again, could have been much worse. No people hurt seriously. In the city of Gulf Shores, no people hurt here. No animals hurt, fortunately. Reporting live from Gulf Shores, Steve Alexander, Fox News.
Steve, thank you very much.
Got a mess to clean up there, too.
Tough way to start the year.
It sure is.
Folks,
really strong time. It's so rare, too, this time of year to feel that. President-elect Donald Trump apparently taking a shot at the Chicago mayor, calling him out for the city's staggering homicide rate from 2016. We'll tell you about that. Plus, remember this.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it, away from the fog of the controversy.
Well, away from the fog, everybody found out what was in it, and some people aren't too happy with it. That was Speaker Nancy Pelosi famously saying that we needed to find out what was in that bill. Remember, a lot of them didn't even read the bill before it was passed. Now she's singing a bit of a different tune amid a scramble on Capitol Hill to repeal and replace. House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy standing by for more on that right after this.
We will repeal the disaster known as Obamacare and create new health care, all sorts of reforms that work for you and your family.
We now have a reaction from GM. General Motors now responding to President-elect Trump's tweet a bit earlier today. Earlier, Mr. Trump threatened a border tax on the company making its Chevy Cruze vehicle in Mexico, then sending it back to the U.S. GM just put out a statement moments ago saying that all of its Chevy Cruze sedans sold in the United States are built at the assembly plant in Lordstown, Ohio, northeastern part of the state near Warren, Ohio. So Melissa Francis is trying to get to the bottom of all of this, and we're going to talk to her in a couple minutes to bring you up to date on what's happening on that. So stay tuned. 32 past now.
In the meantime, Congress getting back to work today, and they've got a full plate from Obamacare to tax reform and the confirmation hearings, which could get a little sticky. New members will be sworn in today. You remember the results of the November election? It's going to look like this. 52 Republicans in the Senate. And we'll take a look at the House as well. They get to work as they get sworn in today. There's a look at the House, 241 Republicans, 218 in the majority. President-elect Donald Trump also ready to tackle the agenda that he has laid out. Tweeting this morning, quote, "People must remember that Obamacare just doesn't work and it's not affordable. 116% increases in Arizona. Bill Clinton called it, quote, crazy," says the president-elect, joined now by House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Happy New Year to you, sir. Good to have you with us today.
Happy New Year to you and all the viewers.
So we all remember Nancy Pelosi saying that you had to find out what was in the bill, and once you did, you were going to love it. Now she's concerned that you guys are going to mess it up as you try to repeal it. Here's what she said.
It's the old thing of going into a china shop. You break it, you own it. And they're dealing with something that is very, when I say complex, it's sophisticated in terms of their meticulous attention to the detail of the provision so that they have the impact that they have. They have shown nothing in their ranting and raving that shows any level of knowledge of where they would go or where they would take this.
So she says it's pretty complicated and that you guys might not understand it. So what do you say?
Well, this is what I understand. The president said if you liked your health care, you could keep it. You can't. He said premiums would go down. They're up on average over $4,300. Of the 23 co-ops that were created in Obamacare, 18 of them have already failed. Insurance has pulled out of the marketplace. You have more than 1,000 counties that only have one choice. They have no competition. They have no options in those 1,000 counties across America. So if we do nothing, Obamacare collapses on its own. And we can't. We will repeal Obamacare, and we've already reached out on both sides of the aisle across the country to create a health care system that is much different. And one thing I did last year even, I sent a letter to every governor and every insurance commissioner, give us your ideas of the best way to move forward. And we'll make a plan that actually works, because today we all know this plan is failing America.
You know, if you look back through the history of one-party majorities on Capitol Hill, they tend to be fairly short-lived. So there's a lot of pressure on you as leader to get things done and to do it effectively. You've got 19 million people who now have health care insurance who didn't have it before. It's very easy to envision a 2018 election where people say that, you know, you guys took their health care away. How are you going to prevent that?
Well, you're not going to see where people are taking their health care away. When we repeal Obamacare, and no decisions are made yet on the process of where it's going. We're just now being sworn in today. We'll get together. The new administration will be sworn in January 20th. But you'll see us start moving a budget bill, because that will allow us in reconciliation to be able to repeal Obamacare, have a transition period where people can work together, put a new health care system in that actually lowers the cost, give people greater choices, so those 1,022 counties out there, they'll have more than one option when it comes to health care.
Okay,
they'll be able to pick in a different way.
So you said there'll be a transition period. How long do you envision the transition period? How long will that take for people to get to the way that you want this health care bill to be?
Well, as we work through the process, we'll be able to roll that out. Again, we are just now being sworn in today. We're working with the Senate, and then we'll work with the new administration that's not even sworn in yet. And it'll be very quick to make that process be as smooth as possible and actually have a health care system that works.
All right. Well, more to come on that, as you say, as everybody gets put in place. It's going to be fascinating to watch how you try to make that transition and leave people in a position where they have health care. So we'll be watching that. I want to ask you about this House Ethics Committee, because there's a lot of attention being given to that, and I know that you did not want them to dissolve this independent entity that would help to oversee ethics in the House. Why? How did that go through?
Well, there's a lot of misinformation about this. I just didn't want to do it in the manner in which it was going, because remember, there are two ethics committees, one with inside Congress and one that was designed for the public to register any complaint on the outside regarding a member of Congress. And then that committee would actually look at it, and they had two options. They would send it to the ethics committee to withdraw the complaint, or they'd send it for further investigation. All those things stay in place. Really what's happening is these are just reforms to this ethics committee. And a lot of these reforms were brought forward on a bipartisan basis from Democrats on the other side of the aisle.
But it sounds like you're changing your tune on that. Are you in favor of dissolving the independent entity?
Well, first of all, it doesn't get dissolved, so I'm not in favor of dissolving it. I was not in favor of moving forward in the rules package with it, because I thought we should take it by itself in a bipartisan manner, because there are people on both sides of the aisle that would support these reforms. The Ethics Committee will still be there. The public could still make a complaint.
It will be inside the Congress rather than outside?
No, it won't be on the inside of Congress. It'll still be on the outside of Congress. All it will have is every entity across America, a government entity, has somebody to oversee it from accountability process. We made that the Ethics Committee because the Ethics Committee is the only committee in Congress that is evenly divided with Republicans and Democrats, regardless who's in the majority. So that's, to us, the fairest place for it to be, to have the authority. But it's on its own entity on the outside. The public can still register a complaint. They'll still investigate. All it does is set a time frame for how long these investigations can go on.
It certainly started a conversation that may be distracting to your agenda, and I think that's a problem that you have. Before I let you go, very quickly, tell me the first regulation that you're going to try to repeal.
Well, the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to start reforming the VA committee. When you look at the VA process, our troops and our veterans have not been treated correctly. This is a place that we are serious about looking at, a place that we worked with the Trump administration, and that's going to be our first action today.
All right. It's called the REINS Act, and we look forward to hearing more about it. Kevin McCarthy, Majority Leader, thank you very much. See you next time, sir.
Thank you.
It has been a record year in the city of Chicago, and for all the wrong reasons. The murder rate has never been higher. President-elect Donald Trump taking to Twitter to comment about Chicago's rising number of homicides. Mr. Trump mentioning the Chicago mayor, Rahm Emanuel, who he met with in person weeks ago in New York. Tweeting this: Chicago murder rate is record-setting, 4,331 shooting victims with 762 murders in 2016. If mayor can't do it, he must ask for federal help. Matt Finn live in Chicago with more on this story. And Matt, good morning there.
Good morning, Bill. Well, Donald Trump launching another direct attack on Twitter, this time against Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel. Also interesting to see the president-elect already addressing Chicago's violent crime, considering this is President Obama's hometown, and the city's crime rate is something the president often did not talk about. Now, taking a look at these staggering numbers, 762 people murdered in the city of Chicago in 2016. That's more than LA and New York combined. An average of 2 people killed in the city per day. You could see that number has skyrocketed from 468 murders last year, wiping to the number of people shot in Chicago. 4,331 people shot in the city last year in 2016, a major increase from about 2,400 people shot in 2014. Since the start of 2017, a few days ago, 4 people have already been shot and killed in the city. The Chicago mayor's spokesperson released a statement in response to that Donald Trump tweet saying, quote, "As the president-elect knows from his conversation with the mayor, we agree the federal government has a strong role to play in public safety. We are heartened he is taking the issue seriously and look forward to working with the new administration on these important efforts." Now, on the other side of all this, there are, of course, have been numerous incidents of alleged Chicago police brutality caught on tape, one officer even being charged with murder last year. Currently, CPD is under investigation by the Department of Justice. That investigation could wrap up this month and determine if there are any type of alleged racism or brutality in the department similar to Ferguson. Bill?
A year to forget for Chicago. Matt Finn, thank you. They're live today in the Midwest. Thank you, Matt. Martha.
So President Obama promised a smooth transition between his administration and the incoming Trump administration. But President-elect Trump says that the road has been anything but smooth. Whose fault is it? We'll talk about that.
Also, a big-time jewel heist pulled off only blocks from the biggest party in the world. How'd they do this one? So much then for the smooth transition of power. President Obama and President-elect Trump already clashing over Russia and a controversial UN resolution over Israel. The Wall Street Journal sums it up this way, writing, President Barack Obama and his successor Donald Trump are making moves that tread on each other's turf and complicate the other's agenda, creating one of the messiest White House transitions in recent years. Now, Miki Kantz, host of The Filter on Sirius XM, and Rich Lowry, editor of National Review and a Fox News contributor. And Happy New Year to both of you.
New Year.
Wow. I mean, it is Trump versus Obama, or Obama versus Trump, however you want to characterize it. We have 17 more days of this, though, Miki.
Oh my God, 17 more days of tweets until someone takes the phone away from Donald Trump. Listen, there's always going to be a sticky transition when you have a Republican president or a Democratic president transitioning over to the other party. That's normal. The difference here is you have a Republican who is very far to the right and is doing things in a very unconventional way. He is creating this fight by pitting his positions against President Obama's positions, and President Obama is just simply trying to preserve his legacy.
Well, okay. A couple things. One, I think at the technical level, staff level, things are probably fine. But you have a president who realizes his legacy is going to start washing away literally in a matter of weeks, and is trying to do everything he can on the way out the door to lock some things down, including on foreign policy, on very fraught issues, including on Israel. So you just inevitably have this sort of clash, and it's not Donald Trump's role to sort of sit down and take it and say everything's fine. He opposes a lot of this.
I think this is fascinating. I mean, all of this, all the moves and the counter moves, and I think you're both right. I think Obama's trying to lock down his legacy, and Trump's trying to make sure that he doesn't get boxed in. November 28th, the president said this from the White House.
I have instructed my team to follow the example that President Bush's team set 8 years ago and work as hard as we can to make sure that this is a successful transition for the president-elect.
I remember 2000 when they were taking the W's off the typewriters after the battle in Tallahassee. We are a long way from that. This is national and in some cases international policy. Donald Trump tweeted this: doing my best to disregard the many inflammatory President O statements and roadblocks. Thought it was going to be a smooth transition. Not. No, Miki.
This is coming from a guy who's been attacking the sitting president left and right on Twitter in speeches criticizing Obamacare, sat down with the sitting president and said he was going to work with him, but he himself has not done so whatsoever. Now, the reality here is that it is a smooth transition. President Obama is preserving his policies. Whether or not Donald Trump likes those policies is a different situation. But he's not setting up booby traps in the White House, as far as we know, right now.
Probably would like to, but he's probably not.
As far as we know, I mean, there's the W's or whatever it is, with the D's on the computers are probably still in place. But this is about
the D's are the J's are the T's. Go ahead.
But Obama wasn't prepared for this. He really thought he was the next Ronald Reagan, which meant that he'd have a successor of the same party to cement his legacy. That didn't happen. I think he was as shocked as anyone, and it's all going to wash away. Starting with Obamacare, well, not all, but a lot of it. His signature initiative, Obamacare, will be partially repealed within weeks.
I don't agree with that.
And that's really hard to take.
I think that's a risk for Republicans, though, don't you?
But this is part of the reason why the president is making the moves that he's making. He's going to go to Capitol Hill tomorrow, I think for the first time since March of last year. Wow. He's going to make a major speech, a farewell speech in Chicago, a city that we just reported on has been racked by homicides, a record number last year. Wow. Sean Spicer told us 30 minutes ago that President-elect Trump will hold his first press conference within the next 10 to 15 days. But my point is, these men are going to go at it for the next 17 days and beyond.
Right, but 17 days and President Obama is gone. And he's, in effect, like all the rest of us, he's a commentator. And President Trump will have the ball, and he'll unspool a lot of this regulation. They'll partially repeal Obamacare, and it'll go on from there. And that's, again, really hard for President Obama to take, because this is not the way he
But he's staying in Washington to influence, and he will be the leader of the Democratic Party.
It's a little late. He's meeting with congressional Republicans to figure out how to save Obamacare. It's a little late to think about that. He shouldn't have lost dozens and dozens and dozens of congressional seats.
And I think that's the big point here, is that Democrats have not held such a weak majority nationwide since 1929. And if you look at the 20s, that's when the Republicans were passing the most legislation. So this is a really tough spot for Democrats right now. When you're looking at Senator Schumer, who says he's going to block everything he can, block, the repealing of Obamacare. And we don't have a party to support that infrastructure from the state level all the way to the national level. And that's what President Obama, who still hopefully has many years in his life, will be able to do.
Endlessly fascinating. You get better, will you? I mean, a month ago we were talking about you under the weather. All right, work on it.
You're jinxing me.
Leave the W's on the typewriter, too, okay? None of that. Thank you, Namiki. Thank you, Rich. Martha, what's next?
Well, there were long lines and delays for some on the busiest travel days of the year. Computer outages making things a whole lot worse as millions of people try to get home after the holidays. What officials are saying about that glitch with the old U.S. Customs computers.
A very long wait, longer than our actual flight, about over 2 hours in line once we got here.